Well, welcome to one of my encore presentations today. I've never presented this in a book, but if some of you have been in my classes in the last, I don't know, maybe 2 years, you would have done this lesson. But it is one of my favorite lessons. Water lilies have been, wow, just a popular subject. For example, Monet painted over 250 versions of water lilies. So to me, that gives you permission to do it again. So this is the lesson that we're going to be doing today. And I'm going to add a froggy. I'm going to skip the fish. I'm going to do that again in another lesson. But one of the things we're going to do is talk about how you want to have an area that's more focal, a little bit bigger maybe, a little more interest. And again, I'm thinking about the thirds, the way you break up your composition. So this is the perfect spot. And then you always like to have these shapes interlocking with something. You can see how one of these petals went under, one over, and one is interlocking here. Of course, this beautiful dark shadow is coming through here to pop it out. And we have over here, for a little additional entertainment, a little froggy coming up and a fish underneath. But well, we're not going to worry about the fish. And this lesson involves many steps. I think you're going to love it. There's more than just you put the paint on your brush and apply it. It's going to be developed over a period of time where we do one thing at a time. So everybody has a successful lesson with this one. I've had absolute beginners paint this, and their finished result is amazing. We're going to do, for example, I'm going to teach you how to do these little water droplets. And they're really easy to do. I mean, they look pretty sensational, but with a little clip of a razor and that extra dark cast shadow, they're amazing and simple. And you never know. If somebody falls in love with one of your water drops, you could have a sale. Here's another example of a watercolor painting I did several years back. And you can see I'm really having some fun with this one. Water lilies all grow from each one of these has a stem that goes down to the bottom of the water, the pond, the swamp, whatever it's in. And these, once in a while you can see some of these stems. So I love to just kind of play with that idea of wrapping it around over a lily pad, under a lily pad. So for me it became just a little design mechanism. And then you can also see I took a Caron Dash watercolor crayon and just started drawing some lines around here, having some fun. In fact, I have a lesson that's going to be coming up with the use of, where we're going to do the painting using those watercolor crayons. I'm absolutely in love with those. So you can see here we're also working with the cruciform composition, something I frequently like to add to all my lessons. So the darks that are popping out, all these subjects, the flower, the lily pad, and the buds, is the dark, that really dark shape in the background, which also is crossing over in the cruciform composition. So you'll see this repeated a lot. Here's another one where I took the watercolors and just used them as a vehicle to make these abstract shapes. And in most cases, when I do a circle, I try to interlock it with the edge of the paper or the corner in this case, because a circle just stuck on your work will just start spinning around. It's really a problem. But as soon as you have it interlocking, you have shapes breaking out, interlocking, like this lily pad goes between the two shapes. This lily pad breaks out and interlocks with the edge of the paper. And then you can see I had some fun with more of these stem-like ideas, just swirling them around. Here's another one with the circles. In this case, the circle's not only interlocking with the edge of the paper, it's interlocking with the next circle, which is interlocking with the edge of the paper, with another circle interlocking. So this certainly illustrates how important it is to interlock your shapes. Always think about that. And all these interlocking shapes are forming a lovely movement through the picture, which is also something I'm always trying to create. Now, whenever you do something this busy, my gosh, we've got your focal area, we've got all these shapes moving. You have to have areas of rest, and this is the rest area. Very important. This area is as important as the rest of it. Here's another one. A lot of fun. This was one of my favorite lessons. Now you can see the shapes coming in, and shapes, like in this case, the bud. That is the part that's interlocking the two. That turned out to be a lot of fun. And when you look at this circle, look at how it's dark on this side, but here it's dark on the outside. And I have another lesson coming up that will actually go through this routine, working with the shapes, interlocking them, working with the dark and light patterns. Oh, it's one of my favorite subjects. In fact, when we do the watercolor on canvas, I'm going to work with this concept. Well, we're down to the real lesson. This is what we're going to be painting. And one of the things I'm going to show you how to do is to get this beautiful light in the background. This bounce of the light off the top of the water is amazing. And I mean, we're going to do things like reflections, how to do that, how to do the water droplets, how to paint the Froggy and all that. But the big thing is we're going to talk about the light. If you look at this picture, the lightest lights are right here through the center. As you move out, we're going into the more warm colors. And at the end, if you look, the very end of this, they're all cool colors. This is called a focus of light, warm to cool. And it's more or less a circle. You can see there's a lot more warm colors here bouncing in the water, like the sun is out there. And then we're moving to the darker edges. This will all be done by starting out with the drawing, actually painting each one of these as a little unit, the reflection, the flowers, and the lily pads. Then we're going to put a masking over them, and then we're going to do this grand finale with this background of color put in as a focus of light. Now there are two suggestions that I'm going to make for this focus of light. One is what you're looking at right now. This is the Nita Engel colors. I always like to give her credit. She was a big influence in my personal art journey. And the colors we're going to use on that would be the Windsor yellow, and probably permanent rose, and cobalt blue. Beautiful sunny day colors. Here's another example of the focus of light moving from the warm to the cool. But if you look at it, it's more subdued. This is the other triad I was talking about. This would be what I call the old world triad. So this one has Quin gold, Quinacridone burnt orange, and indigo blue. And that combination just kind of pushes down the intensity and the brightness, but it also gives you that feeling of this old swamp somewhere with all these lily pads growing in it. Here's another example of, this one is the Nita Engel. You can see here the focal area has a kind of a lily pad that's up out of the water, the watermarks, and the Froggy sitting on the lily pad. It's really fun. Here's another one with the Nita Engel. And remember how I talked about how important it is to have these rest areas? There's a lovely rest area, very important. Here's another one. Here's another one. I very seldom put lily pads further than the 2/3 of the way because they can turn into flying saucers. Here's an example. See how that lily pad looks like any minute you could put a Froggy on it and it would just take right off. So these flying, I'm going to talk a lot about that when we get to the point where I'm going to show you how to put the shadows in. These shadows under the lily pads are really important. All these dark shadows, you can see them under every lily pad. And that's the way they look like they're in the water. Now see, this should have been interlocking with something. See how they feel like they're in the water if something's in front of it or touching it or interlocking. These interlocking shapes are really important. But that one got away from me. That's funny. Okay, and this is the last one I'm going to share with you. And here you can see I have two flowers interlocking. That also makes a very nice composition for interest. And then if you do have fish, I always try to have the fish coming into the picture. Not swimming out, but swimming into the picture. Very important. But the most important thing is for you to think about all these interlocking shapes. This is interlocking with this, which is interlocking with this. And, you know, all of these things are interlocking, every one of these. So think about that when you're designing your composition so that it just doesn't look like a bunch of objects all over just floating around. Well, we're ready to get started. So here you can see my drawing. And again, I've got a lot of interlocking shapes. All of these, for example, interlock. And here we have some coming up and going back. So I love the zigzag. And then I also love some rest areas. And like I say, don't do any of these lily pads that are going to be flying saucers. Keep them within the bottom 2/3 of your picture. And another thing, you'll notice the elliptical shape of the lily pads. This whole composition is like one point perspective. So back here is our point, this is our horizon line, and as we come out towards the front of the pond, the lily pads in the front are going to be this big, but the lily pads as they go back into the pond are going to be successively smaller because of the perspective. So think about that when you're drawing your lily pads so that the ones in your focal area in the foreground are bigger, and then as you move back in the pond, make them smaller and smaller. So this one could be over here, see. This one could be over here. But keep the size relationship in mind so they get smaller as they go back. Now here's another hot tip. When I draw my lily pads, I actually draw them in this elliptical shape. And this is where the stem would come down underneath. And so this actually is cut away like this. So when you're drawing your lily pad, what you want to do is draw that elliptical shape. But be careful, a lot of people round these out. That's not how they look. They're quite sharp like this. And the reason I'm concerned about that is I've had a lot of people make their lily pads look like this, because sometimes I'll have that break up at the top, and that actually looks like a bunch of moons in the water. I had a lady with 17 of those moons in her water one time. So I generally don't make the break at the top for that reason. And I usually have the breaks coming up from the bottom somewhere, from the side. And if I do make a break of a lily pad from the top, I don't round these corners. And just remember, it's only going to go that far when you're on the long elliptical. It's only got a little ways to go. Here it's got to go all that way to the edge, but here it would be only that deep. Okay, now you can see that I've got lily pads under and over. This happens a lot. The lilies actually float into these these little corners here. I'm sure it's comforting. And so you frequently see them in there. I love that. And then what happens is when you have a cast shadow, you can paint the cast shadow on the top of the lily pad. So this is a little personal treat for me. I frequently have them float into that opening. And then I thought this would be fun to move this little guy here so he's kind of looking at the scene. And the rest of the lily pads are just there to give us movement. And you can see the size relationships get smaller as we go back. We're going to start by painting one of the water lily pads. And see, I've actually taken the time to mask all my little water droplets. And they're elliptical shaped, just like the lily pads. They're not round necessarily. They're kind of this elliptical shape. And my favorite masking fluid is a clear. It's actually the invisible white mask. And what you do is don't shake it, that will aerate it, and then you'll have little bubbles that break. What you do is I always stir it, just a gentle stir, and then I'm using, for example, just a painting knife or a tool. I don't like to get my brushes dirty. It's just another step, see? So this is what I do. You can see how thin this is. If your masking is really, really thick, you either haven't stirred it well enough or for some reason it's just been sitting around a long time. But this is fairly thin. And see what I did is I just put this down. I drew the circle first, obviously, elliptical shape first, and then I just touched in this clear masking, and now I'm just going to wipe it off, and see, that sure beats cleaning a brush. That's it. I'm done. Ready to go. So you just saw me wet this shape. I'm going to give it just a little bit more water. And one of the first things I'm going to do is pull in some nice fresh color. I'm thinking about my son coming in from my right hand side. So I'm going to just start with some yellow. This happens to be areolan. And I'm going to leave some white paper. Some white paper. Don't forget that. Then I'm going to come in with some Quinacridone gold and just put that right over my little mask. You can see now they're starting to resist a little bit. And then I might even come in with a little Quinacridone burnt orange way over here on the edge. So these three colors are already starting to give me the feeling of the sun coming. And then I'm going to take Antwerp blue, which is my favorite blue, and I'm just going to put this down right on top of these colors. Just let it kind of float around a little bit. I'm going to go out to the edges though. I want it nice and clean out there. Notice how I'm saving those whites. Very important. Save those whites. So now I can just take and tip this, and because it's wet, it will roll back and forth. And I'm going to be doing some red flowers. So I'm also going to throw in some reds. I mean, just literally throw in some reds. That happens to be my permanent rose. And this is where the fun starts. This is a product you're all pretty familiar with, heavy duty saran wrap. And I like the premium, not the new cling. I don't care for the cling at all. I like it at home, but I don't like it for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull out enough of this, rip it in half, and see, I just want enough to fit this shape. And here's where the fun comes in. This is a little trick I learned from my friend Vivian Bly. Hi, Vivian. And this, we're talking about like 25 years ago, at least, maybe 30. And what I'm doing is I'm holding this little top. See, I call it a tit. So I'm just holding that little top, and then I'm pulling it so I can get these fun lines that are coming out. Now with a tits up, I'm going to put this down right in the middle. And look what's happening. It's touching, and those lovely shapes are going all the way out to the edge and giving me these wonderful shapes. Oh, I love it. And now can you see how not having a green, if I painted this a flat green, that would be very boring. But because I've got some of the white here, some of the yellow, I've got a mid-tone green, a darker green, and I threw in that reflected light of the reds. Look how beautiful that is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to paint all my lily pads in a similar manner. I just wanted to mention that I have, I don't know, maybe 8 kits with these different configurations of lily pads and lilies and frogs and fish and whatever. And so if you're interested, what I do is I provide you with a reference photo, and then all the different, whatever's in that particular lesson will come with photographs to help you complete the lesson. Right now I'm going to start with this lovely lily, which is just starting to open up. So you can see we still have some darks underneath. And look at the variety here, even white of the paper. Now a lot of people say, well, it's a red lily pad, you got to paint every petal red. No, you don't. The light, when the light touches it, it washes out the color and you have a lot of white left. And that's important because when I put a dark background, look how those whites pop out. Very, very important. So I'm going to show you how we can start with the color at the base. As we come up, we're going to leave it to, we're going to lose that edge to the white of the paper. So I'm going to start with a dark color, the darkest red that I have, and that happens to be alizarin crimson. This is a very deep color. So if I start with this color, and if I do petals that aren't touching each other, I can do more than one at a time. Why not? Got to be efficient. So you can see here I've got 3 of them going. If this is your first time painting, maybe you'll do 1. And then I'm going to wash my brush out, and I'm going to go into the next color. The next color I'm going to use is going to be a lighter red. This is Quinacridone Coral. And the fun thing is I start this color not in the red, but I started above the red. And I push it into that color. Very important. So now I'm going to do that with all of these. I'm going to start it above, push it in. Start above and push it in. Then what I'm going to do is take my brush and shake it really good. I'm going to touch it on a tissue to get some of the extra moisture out. I'm going to start up here, and then I'm going to just lose that into the white of the paper. And sometimes you have to do it more than once, but always start with the wet at the very top. So see how the top of that is still white? That's what I'm trying to get at. I want you to go from this into the dark color. Let's get those other ones before they dry. White at the top and pull it back into the other color so that you have a nice lost edge. Over here, shake it out real good, get the extra moisture off. Start at the top, push it back, and see that gives you the soft edge. Clean it again, and start at the top and get that nice soft tonal wash going all the way to the back. Now, if you want even more depth of color here, we could even go into, we could take our alizarin crimson, we could add just a little touch of Windsor green to it and make it darker. So that this base could be even darker. Now we'll check all these elements to make sure it's a nice lost edge going from dark to the actual white of the paper. Sometimes I have to lift away if I put too much water and I didn't get that tip very bright, so you have to lift it away. This is my thirsty brush. There you go. Good enough. Okay, so I'm going to continue painting these different petals, and an important thing to remember is always start with the back petal and work to the front. So notice how I picked all the petals that are in the back and they're not touching. So now I'll come back and do these others, and see some of these that are way in the back like this, I might paint those a solid dark. But the thing is, what you want to do is start from the back and come to the front. Okay, I'm going to paint this little froggy. Oh, I think they are so fun. And especially, look at, you can see the water line here where he's underwater and out of the water. So we're going to deal with that water line later. Right now, we're just going to go ahead and paint this little rascal. And I like to paint wet. So I'm going to wet everything but his eye. I want to keep that eye on the white of the paper. So I'm just going to come in here with my little brush and wet everything but his eye. And then for colors, I'm just going to use the same colors I always do. I'm going to use some of my Aeolian yellow. And where I see the warmest colors, I'm just going to touch those in. Up here where he's sticking out. And then I'm going to use my Quin Gold where he's deeper. Here, deeper in the water. So I just love to paint with pure color. I don't mix my color a lot on the palette. I like to mix it on my paper. So he's a lot grayer down here too. So I might just put in a little pink. Just because when I take, now I might take a little orange, that's even better. Let me show you what I mean. When you take orange and cobalt blue, you get a beautiful gray. And see, that gray is very close to the color that this guy is. So I'm just going to put a little bit of this gray down here towards the bottom. Right on top of the colors. And see, his hand's a little bit gray over here too. And out here. Now I'm going to do a mixture of Antwerp blue with Quinacridone burnt orange. Same colors I used in my lily pad here. And whenever you mix Quin burnt orange with Antwerp blue, you get a very, very dark, dark green. And so this is going to be the color we're going to put around some of the areas we want a little darker. There's some little, it's got like little dots on his eyes there. These little lines, these little linear shapes are darker. You can see that my paper is still wet. I'm still getting some nice bleeding. That's what I want. I want this to look soft. I don't want it to look hard. Now I'm going to take some nice pure Antwerp blue and just put this in here to get some beautiful greens. Yeah, there we go. And right over the top of all these other colors. And see, we're going to get some lovely greens. We're going to keep them much yellower and lighter in the foreground here. You'll notice his under lip there is very yellow. I'm going to come back with a little more yellow here. Yeah, there you go. And then I'm back in my Antwerp. And I'm just going to put that down. So you can see how fun it is just to paint it very free, very fresh. Try to get in some of the grays. I might come in with a little more dark here. I might go just a lot darker as he's submerged into the water here. Might even put in a little more of that gray. So you can see it's very exciting. If we look at this little rascal close up, look at how the colors are glowing through. You can still see the primary yellow, you can see some of the gold, and you can see some of the grays down here, and then that final fresh color on top. And then eventually we're going to go into that really dark eye, and it's going to make a big difference. Big difference. In fact, I'm going to put it in right now. I'm just going to take some Quinacridone orange here, and I'm going to mix in some French ultramarine blue. And see, a lot these color combinations are all going to be in a little color mixing exercise that you'll find in your tips. But this is what I use. Quinacridone orange, French ultramarine blue, and that gives me a beautiful black. And I'm going to take this black and put it in that eye, just because I can never wait for this to dry. Look at the difference, just putting that little eye in there. And then there's a lot of fine details that we can get in later. But I just can't wait. I like to do as much as I can while this is still wet. So see, I'm even coming in here with a little bit of this black into this wet surface to accent those stripes. Coming in over here to get some of those polka dots on his eyeball here. So this is something I really enjoy. I love getting in as much detail as I can while the piece is still wet. And you can just watch the colors just move. That's why I love watercolor so much. It's the way the colors move in the water. Wet into wet. So almost all my lessons are going to have some of this wet into wet stuff. Here we go. I see little spots, so I'm just touching this black all over and into the wet, you can see, and it's just giving me some nice little dots. I got carried away here. I'm gonna lift out a few of these. I don't want those. Now for my last death-defying act, I'm actually gonna put a little bit of, just a little bit of salt. It's usually something you do at the very end, and then you're done. I'm going to show you how to do some of these petals that are in the buds that are just floating around here. So again, I'm going to use a combination of colors mixed on the paper. But in this case, remember I started this flower on dry paper. And I added the colors and backed it in. On these buds here, I'm just going to go ahead and wet it. And I think I'm going to try to do all 3 buds at once. And see, these are the petals that are still folded up, so that you're still seeing the green. And this will be the same color as whatever flower it's going to be. It would be white or yellow or pink. But what we're talking about here are those petals that are encasing the bud. And what I like to do is I always think about my sun source. Now my sun source is coming from here. So I'm going to put the, first of all, just like I did on the lily pad, I'm going to have the yellow because that's closest to the sun. Then I'm going to come in with my Quinacridone orange. Then I'm going to come in with my Quinacridone burnt orange, which is the color that makes a lovely dark green. And see, that's going to be at the base. See, you can already see the feeling of light, but the color's wrong. So now we're going to take Antwerp blue, my favorite color to make green. I love this color. It's a Windsor Newton color. So I'm just going to put it in basically in my dark area and just let it move up there. This color moves in water. So you just put it at the base, let it go. It's going to find its way up there all by itself. There you go. Sometimes I'll just take a damp brush, just a clean damp brush. You can see here I'm just taking off some of the extra moisture. And if I want to, I can just come in and lift a little bit if it gets too aggressive. But I really love that, just that wet look. And as it dries, I can go darker and darker. Now here's just some pure Antwerp again, just coming in to give us that darkest dark. Always on the shadow side or at the base over here. But look at the beautiful glowing colors in there. You can't get that if you just take a green out of a tube. This is what painting's all about, mixing the colors fresh on your paper. So now I'm going to go off camera and do a little painting, and when we come back I'm going to show you how to do the reflections. Okay, we're ready to take off our plastic. This is like Christmas morning. I just love this part. And you remember now we had the little tits up here, pressed it into the center to get those radiating shapes. And actually, there's not a big surprise because I can see through the plastic. But here we go. Oh, love it. And one of the things that we want to get is we want to accomplish this idea of the light coming in, my sun source. Sometimes I even draw arrows pointing so I can keep reminding myself where my source of light is. So I'm going to always try, I'm going to now go back and paint a whole bunch of these, but I'm going to try to always have the light of the paper, the whiteness, then the pure yellow, moving into the golds and the greens and the gray greens, and then of course the radiating shapes and that little echo of the color of the red flower. So I always tell my students, now you got to like whatever you get. Don't try to fix it. Just whatever you get, just leave it. It's like your kids. You gotta like what you get. Okay, you can see that I've had a little fun here in the meantime. Just getting mostly the dark mid-tone lights going here. And as I pointed out earlier, this particular flower, it still has those outer dark green shapes that haven't completely opened yet. So I'm going to paint those in. And remember, it's similar to what you saw me do earlier. The sun side's over here. So I'm they're not touching, so I can do all three, actually all four at once. So I'm going to start with my yellow, come in with my gold, and I'm going to make these darker, so I'm going to do it on dry paper. So I'm putting the gold down on top of the dry paper, and it's bumping into the yellow, which is wet. And now I'm going to come in with the Quinacridone burnt orange. And see, this is going to give me the darkest green at the base. So that's why I have it down here. I want it dark down here. So I'm putting that color at the base. I need a little bit more color. Go just a little bit darker here. Especially on the shadow side, the side that's away from the sun. And on the sun side, of course, we're going to keep that light. I might even just wet that edge there. Keep that nice and light. Now I'm going to come in with my Antwerp blue, pure Antwerp blue. And this color is just going to be going directly onto these other colors. And they're going to form the green right before your eyes. So I'm starting at the base, going up. Starting at the base on the shadow side, going up, on the base here at the shadow side. And then what I like to do is to wet my brush, shake it out really good, take the extra moisture off, and just sort of come in and get that nice lost edge. Just soften a bit and get that nice lost edge. Soften it a bit. Lose the edge, and soften here and come up and lose the edge. So see, that's kind of cool. Now we have those outer petals that encase the actual flower. And now we're ready to start thinking about painting our reflection. Very exciting. Now when I paint a reflection, it's just the same colors. You should paint the subject, then the reflection. So because our subject is done, now we're ready to paint the reflection. So I'm just going to start with the same colors, and they're going to be coming down here. This is my Quinacridone Coral. This color is coming out here, coming down here. It's a mirror reflection. So those colors are just coming out here. And then the darker, greener colors, these guys, they're going to be coming out too. So there's the darker green color coming out. And here. And here. So now I'm just going to come in and I'm going to lose these edges. See, I did this on dry paper so that I could have this control. Now I'm just going to soften them because it is in water and we want it to look wet. One of the things I'm missing here are those yellows. I'm going to put in some of those yellows. So I've just got the pure Windsor yellow on my brush right now. I'm just getting some of those pure colors in there. Now I'm going to keep continuing to lose these edges. Some I'm going to leave hard, some I'm going to leave white. And it's really fun when you look at reflections. You can see how the lines, the movement in the water is creating some broken shapes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get really dark up here. See that really dark alizarin crimson that's here is going to be down here somewhere. So we're just going to get this dark is going to come down here. This dark is up a little higher, so we'll come down here. And so we're just going to start showing some broken shapes now in the water. And they always are horizontal. Whenever you have water, any lines of movement are always horizontal. Once again, I'll show you the picture. You can see the horizontal lines going through. So what we're ready to do now is soften some of these edges, leave some hard. They're broken shapes, some whites, some broken shapes. Oops. We're going to soften a few here. And let's see if we tried to capture that. You know what we're missing? Those really dark, dark greens. Remember the Quinacridone burnt orange and Antwerp blue gives you that really beautiful dark, dark green. So that dark green would be coming down here. This dark green would be coming down here. That one would be coming down over here. That one over here. So you just sort of try to give the feeling of this. And now we're going to have some broken shapes out here too. Oh, how fun is that? Then the best part of all is a little salt. And it's the last thing you do and then you don't touch it anymore. So have I done everything I want to do? Actually, no. I just thought of one other thing I want to do. I want to take my flat brush, wet it, wipe it completely dry so it's a lifting brush, and I'm actually going to lift out some shapes here that look like reflections. Reflections very often reflect the light, and so by just lifting out a few little horizontal shapes here, I can make this look more like a reflection. Oh, I like it. This is combining some landscape techniques with our floral techniques. I love it. They're all the same. Everybody thinks I got new lessons, so I just sort of do the same thing over and over again. Got you fooled. So here we go. Now we've got those white lines that I lifted out with the thirsty brush. We've got the broken shapes. We've got some white shapes. Please keep some white shapes. And now my last thing is just a little bit of salt. I'm just going to put a little bit of salt in there, and we'll just let it do its thing. As soon as you put the salt in, you're done. You can't do anymore. And I'm just going to get these last few shapes here painted. And then we're going to do this reflection too. So it'll be a little bit repetition, but you know what? It's important to see the same thing more than once. Now with my brush really clean and the extra moisture taken out, last thing I do is just pull this to the light, almost white of the paper. We like that. We like to have a nice lost edge, so you get a beautiful transition. White going into a mid-tone, coming down into the dark alizarin crimson. So we'll make this the, I'm getting a little sloppy here now. We're going to make this the darkest dark here in these crevices, because we're going to be pulling a little bit of that color out into our reflection. So it's really great to see the light at the top. Don't forget it. White if you can get it. I didn't get it here, but it's light. This one's okay to be darker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get ready to paint this reflection. So I've got my yellow. This is just either Areolan or Windsor. And then I just put a little bit, see, just a little bit of the Antwerp in it. Then I'm going to do a mixed color of the Quin Gold, again with just a little bit of Antwerp in it. That's going to give me my mid-tone color. And then I've already got this color mixed, and that is the Quin Burnt Orange. I'll mix a little bit more here. Quin Burnt Orange with Antwerp, and that gives you this beautiful dark green. Oh my goodness, this is so pretty. So there we have our light, mid-tone, and dark greens. And of course the reds are just no problem. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with this darker green at the base. And then we're going to take some of this mid-tone green. And again, remember now, this is water. You're going to have to move it back and forth in a horizontal play. And then as we reflect the tops, we're going to go into this lighter yellow. Maybe I'll even put a little more gold in there. See how golden that is? So we're going to get, again, this play of the movement of the water. And then alizarin crimson. See, this alizarin is going to start coming in right about here. And up here it's a little higher. So we're going to have some little broken shapes of our red up here. And all these edges are hard right now because I did this on dry paper. So what's really important is that you actually come in. And now I just like to soften this base, right, so these become one. The bottom of this and this are one. I could even come in with a few more darks here. So that those colors actually blend together. So I have to soften these edges too. Now all these edges are hard. I'm going to put in a few more darks before I start the softening. Remember, this is my darkest color. And you always want to have a few of those darks in your reflection. And I might even make those reds a little brighter. This is pure color that I'm putting down here. Now comes the easy part. I'm going to come in, shake my brush out, touch it so it's just wet enough to come in here and soften these edges. Not all of them, but some of them. I love this. Just some of the edges are lost. Some are hard. So we'll lose that one, we'll lose that one, we'll lose this one. We'll just lose little bits and pieces all over the place here. Right here a little bit. And see how we've saved some of those crisp whites? No, we couldn't have saved those crisp whites. Crisp whites. It's hard to say. We couldn't have saved those crisp whites if we had done this by wetting the paper. So remember, I did this on dry paper. I was in control. I reflected the colors as I saw them. I left little whites. I've got those little soft, there's a hard edge, a lost edge, a hard edge, a lost edge. So we got some nice variety in our edges. Now we're going to take a little salt, put it in there. We're done. Okay, this is the flower that I chose for the spectacular 1/3, 1/3 where they cross. It's what we often refer to as the sweet spot. And what I want to do is I want to first of all see the glow of light coming through here. That is so beautiful. That beautiful glow of light, you're seeing it here. It's because this is a white flower and those little sex organs there are reflecting against the white. And it's also just, it's reflecting all over. Look at down here at the base, coming out here. So one of the things I like to do when I'm starting something like this is to simply put that glow in. This is why we use transparent colors, because we can put this beautiful glow into our picture. Just build it in. Every stroke we put in later, that is going to still be there. I love it. So I'm just using a little Windsor yellow. It's the brightest yellow on my palette. And I'm going to put some up here too. Just kind of painting in some of that glow I see. And again, I'm going to take my brush, shake it out, take the extra moisture out, and just lose these edges. So all I've really done is created some soft edges. I went in some areas I didn't want. We'll move those. As I look at this, I'm noticing a little bit of green too. So I could just take a little snippet of green here too if I want. There it is. Love it. Love it. Now when this dries, which is only take a few seconds, I can just start painting right on top of it. And see, this is why I work with a layered style of painting. I do a color like this glow, then I layer another transparent color over the top, and then this color glows through the transparent color I put on top. So I've tried very hard not to have any opaque colors in my palette. Now because I'm working with this gray color, I need to mix a gray. Most grays are made of white paint. We are not using white paint, so we have to mix a gray. Now my favorite gray, and this whole palette could make infinite colors of gray. My favorite is to take Windsor orange, Windsor meaning Winsor Newton. This is a perfect transparent orange. I love it. And then we take right across, my complements are set up right across from each other. So now we're going to take cobalt blue. We're going to do this in a puddle system. So we're going to take a puddle of blue, cobalt. Cobalt has no red in it, no yellow in it. It's a perfect blue. Now when we pull a little bit of this and a little bit of this, we're going to get a gray. And we're going to go between a warm gray and a cool gray. And this is what we want to do now. We want to decide, do we have cool grays or warm grays? And there they are, just waiting for us. I don't mix a big batch of gray and start painting. It would all be the same. I actually tried to get this feeling of the warmer and cooler. Now another thing is we've got cast shadows here. See that? There's that petal is casting a shadow. That's casting a shadow. These are casting shadows on top of the lily pads. Oh, we've got some fun ahead. So I'm going to start now with some of these colors from the warm side. And I'm just going to come in. What I see is what I'm going to paint. See, there's that rounded shape right there. There's another one here. There's one coming up here. And I've got the side, I'm using the side with the extra orange in it because I want it to be a warm shadow. And I also want, because this is on a rounded surface, it's actually round the shadow is soft edged. But notice how these are very close to hard edge. I'm just going to soften them a little bit. Here I go, I'm grabbing from the warm side again, coming in here. Over here I'm still grabbing from the warm side. No, now I'm in the shadow, I'm in the cool side now. Now I'm going to grab the cool side. Okay, come back here. When I draw these, I just draw them freehand, so they're not perfect. I'm just going to have to make up here. That's okay. And again, whenever you have that rounded petal, which I have here, I soften that a bit. And this is cast right onto the edge, so it just needs to be a little bit softened, not too much. Now we need to use more water. See how this petal is gray, but it's not as dark as that one. So with more water, we can actually kind of create that same thing. Now we're painting over those yellows. I love it. And the yellow is glowing through. Up here we can just come in and put in some of these grays. More water, soften the edge. The lighter we do this, the more our picture is going to glow when we put the dark background in. So now I'm just looking for some variety. Grays here, grays there. Some warm, some cool. This is an interesting petal. It's darker at the top and lighter at the bottom. So I'm going to grab it here, start here, darker at the top. You can see I'm a little bit cooler. Wet it, shake it, come in from behind here and just let that color roll down. Roll down. Yeah, that's how easy that is. And then there's another nice cast shadow in here. And you can see that hardly any of my shadows are the same. And I like that. Over here too, I'm just going to come in with a shadow, popping this out. Wet it, shake it, touch it, soften these edges. Here we're going to leave the top lighter because we know what's going to happen. We're going to put a dark behind it. So we want to keep that petal darker here at the base, but lighter as it goes up towards the background. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go around this piece and I'm going to continue to put in shadows. There's actually a darker shadow at the base here on top of the earlier shadow. And see, this is what I mean by layered. So now we're going to put in the darker shadow there. There's another darker shadow here. So it doesn't end. You're constantly looking. We could go just a hair darker here. So it's layer on top of layer. Oh, that's the best part. That's what I love about this whole thing. Now when it comes time to paint those little sex organs, that's pretty easy. These are dry enough now. I'll probably come in with a little Quin Gold, especially at the base here. And I might even put just a little bit of that beautiful orange, the Windsor orange, the very base. And then the top is just real easy. That's just going to be some pure Windsor yellow, very bright. And we want it to be a lost edge. So I'm just pushing all these colors together so it looks like one unit. love that glow down there. I might even push just a little bit more yellow. Got it on my brush. Try to capture that glow there. So I'm going to continue putting in the shadows, and I'm going to finish all my lily pads, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to have a lot of fun. You're probably wondering what this is. Well, it's a rolled up water lily. They frequently do this. They kind of roll up and come right out of the water. And I just liked it because it gave that nice tall shape. So I thought, oh, I'm just gonna go for this. And again, I'm just using my pure color, mixing it on the paper. This is Quin Gold. I started with a primary yellow. Now I'm gonna put in a little Quin Burnt Orange for the extra darker color. We'll think about this popping that out. And then here comes my favorite color to make green, Antwerp Blue. I usually start it in the dark areas and just kind of lace it up here. Doesn't have to be perfect. I don't mind exposing a few of those shapes of color there. So I just kind of put it in. And Antwerp is a color that moves in water. So without doing much, it will just move around. And now I'm just taking the extra moisture out of my brush. And I'm just going to soften some of these edges up here. Because remember now, our sun is coming from this side. So I'm trying to keep it like that. And this is another really cool idea. You can actually see lines in this. So just by taking my palette knife while this is still wet, see, I can introduce these little lines here, and the color just goes into them. I think it's really cool. So now we've got those little fun lines. Now I'm just going to pull this color down into my reflection. And it's the same thing. Just pull the same colors down. Charge in some pure color. Here's some pure yellow getting charged in. And some of this Quin Gold getting charged in down here, mixed with Antwerp. Get darker. And that's all we do. Wiggle it around a little bit. Wet my brush, shake it out, get the extra moisture off, and then just do some lost and found. Some of the areas are going to stay hard. Some are going to kind of follow my drawing here. And I just need to throw in a little of that Quinacridone Burnt Orange. I love that color. See how pretty it is in there? If I just tap it in here, it'll just melt into that beautiful Antwerp mixture. And I always like to have the shadow melt right into my reflection. And see, this would come all the way around here. So there we go. A few lost edges. A little bit of salt. And you can see what's been happening. Look at the beautiful edges here from the salt. And here too. Now I just threw some more in. So we've got that tall rascal in there now. So I thought you might enjoy seeing this repeated. So I'm going to paint this lily pad here. Remember, first thing you do is wet it. And so I have to paint around all these little things. Like Mr. Froggy, he's kind of cute. And then of course, so these are all masked. Those are my water droplets. And I'm just saving those to be the white of the paper. And those will be painted later. So first of all, I have to wet the entire lily pad, clean water. Then the first thing I'm going to do is charge in, because my sun is coming this direction. I'm going to charge in some yellow. This is my primary yellow. And over here I might even save a little bit of white. Maybe I'll save a little white along the edge here. And then I'm going to come in with the pure Quin Gold right over the masked water spots. And then the third color I like to put down is the Quinacridone Burnt Orange. And this is going to give me the darkest color. And this will be good to go a little bit dark in here to pop out his little fingers and his nose. So now we have that kind of coming in. And I'm going to make it just a little bit darker next to the white flower, just so it'll show up. A little bit in here too. Now comes the pure Antwerp, and this color moves in water. So I just kind of have to put it down here, not perfectly, because it will move. So I'm going to put it in between these guys, these fingers. See how I leave little spots? I want it darker there. But I want to save these lights here. Very important. It'll be darker in here. But see, I've got white, yellow, Quin Burnt Orange, a little bit of gold, a little bit of all this color just kind of peeking through here. Love it. I could get even more dramatic. I could just add a little bit more of the dark in here on the shadow side, because he's such a big, he's a real important person here. So let's pull a little darker on the end there. And remember these, I've got red flowers in here, so I can take just some pure Quinacridone coral, and I'm just holding it like this, just with the coral on my brush, and with just my finger ready to tap, I can just do this and see it just goes where I want it, into that wet. And if I get little spots, I don't care about that either. There, now we've got it perfect. Now we're going to make sure that your paper's big enough to cover the whole thing. Perfect. And then we form a little tit. I just grab it, a little teeny one, just a little one, turn it over and pull these out to form those interesting little patterns all the way around. And then tits up. Remember, I turn it over, I put that down, and I just let these radiate out. Thank you again, Vivian. This was your idea. And now we have where it touches, and see, I even like those little, well, those are my mask shapes. But anything that happens, I like it. And you can see the colors are pure. They're just floating around in there. Love it, love it. Now you can't use any salt with this technique. If you were to throw salt in there and try to put the plastic down, it wouldn't be touching it. You have to do this on just the wet surface. I'm having a good time here all by myself, just finishing up these different lily pads, and just by accident I pushed my finger down and it started creeping up onto the Froggy here, and look at it, looks like he's underwater. Now in the picture he's lighter underwater. On my picture he's going to be a little bit darker, but I think it's kind of cool. So I'm going to make sure this lines up a little better. Well, it wouldn't be perfect because his body is bumpy. See, if you actually look at this, see, it's not a perfect circle. It goes up and down depending on the lumps and bumps in his body. I love it. So I think I just put the Froggy underwater and it was an accident. This is what I love about painting with watercolor. These spontaneous things can happen and it's just wonderful. Oh, you can see it's coming along here. They actually look nice before they ever get the water. So it's Christmas morning again. I'm going to take off these plastic covers here. And remember, oh, this is going to be a good one here. Remember I said I think I put the Froggy underwater. Let's see what happened. I just pushed up the plastic and it pushed some of that color. So if we're lucky, oh look, he does. He looks underwater. This is going to be too much fun. So I'll take that into account when I paint the background. Stay tuned. Okay, we're ready to do the masking. Now, my preference in masking is the Incredible White Mask. And it's also called Liquid Frisket. There's many products on the market. There's Pebeo, which is kind of a gray-green. Grumbacher, which is kind of a psychedelic pink. And there's another one that's kind of a yellowy gray. Windsor Newton also has a clear masking, which I like, but I just fell in love with the Incredible White Mask years and years ago, and you know how it is, you fall into a little rut. So now if you're going to apply the masking with a brush, it's really important that you take a little soap. This is a liquid soap here, so I'm simply going to dampen my brush, and then I'm going to put it into the soap and work it in really good. And then with the soap on my brush, I'm going to dip it into the masking. And I'm going to start from I'm right-handed. So I'm going to start over here on the left side and work my way across and down. Whatever you do, don't start here because then you're banging into it all the time. So if you're right-handed, start on the left side. If you're left-handed, start on the right side. I'm going to move this in close, and the crazy thing is I'm going to do this with masking that is white. So when you put it on, it's actually white. You can see what you're doing. But when it dries, it's absolutely clear. I think it's the perfect mask. So I'm just going to carefully put it. If I miss a little edge, it's okay. So I'm going to carefully put it only up to the reflection. Do not paint the reflection. Everything else, when I say paint, I mean mask. So a lot of times I'll do this. I'll just take and get big gobs of this on here. I might even pour it out. You can see how liquid it is. And I'll just take and roll it around. Just push it with my brush. So when people say, are you kidding? We've got to mask that whole thing? Really, it is not a big deal. Just pour it out and push it around. And what you want to do is get this. You don't want to miss any spots. That is a problem with this masking. And people, I don't know, sometimes I think they went through the depression or something. They don't use a lot of it. Get it on thick. We don't want to miss any spots. Remember, we're not going to paint the reflection, but we are going to put put this on all of the things we've painted. Every lily pad, every flower, right over those little droplets. So they're gonna have 2 coats. Don't worry about it. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish masking this entire piece. And when I get back, the fun's gonna begin. One of the things you have to do is after you've masked approximately a third of this, what you need to do is take off all the extra masking, go into your water, clean it, just clean it. Never mask the whole thing with the same brush because you'll see it start gobbing up. So now we have to start all over again. Dampen the brush, come in with the soap, get the soap in there. Really penetrate. I really push it in there. And then I'll wipe away just a little bit with the soap on my brush. I just go right ahead, dip this in here, and just juice it up. Oh, look at that. Oh, man. Now, it goes on so easily, you don't think much about it, but you know what? And I look like I'm going really fast. But take your time, because if you start going outside that line, you're actually saving the white of the paper. And all that has to be fixed later. Remember now, we don't mask the reflection. We're just going to do only the buds down to the line where they're in the reflecting in the water. So just paint the masking onto the bud, over everything. Try not to go outside the line. Put it on nice and thick, and then stop at the water line. If you've got any little spots all over, you know, I've got a few. I'm always throwing the paint around. We don't care about those little spots. When you think about a swamp, there's little particles floating around from the pine trees, everything. So just don't worry about any little smudges on your paper. It's gonna all work. Okay, now, gotta remember, don't paint the reflection. I used to do a lot of masking. I do very little masking nowadays. But in the old days, I'd do so much masking. And my mom was still with us, and I'd give her a call, and she'd be so surprised. She'd say, "I can't believe you're calling me. Are you masking?" She just knew that I was so busy, but when I mask, it's sort of mindless. I mean, look, I can talk and put the masking on at the same time. I thought that was so funny that she figured that out. Are you masking? This is probably the hardest one because I'm doing a white flower. It's a lot easier to do the darker colors. But you're going to be so glad you use this light mask when we start throwing color all over, because it's very important that you know what's under there, because when we start laying in the colors, we want to put dark behind the lightest lights, and then we want to go light behind the darkest darks. And you can't do that if you have a masking that's a tone. Oh, look at this, I get a little surprise. I need to paint that reflection. So I'll do that before we start. So everything should be painted at this point. And you're probably wondering, well, why don't you do the background first? Then you don't have to do all this careful masking. Well, the reason I do it this way is because now I can put dark behind my lights and lights behind my darks. And if I do it the other way, I don't know where my darks and lights are. So now I very carefully went next to these. I'm sure I still missed a few, but I've got another gift coming for you in your gift box. Oh, by now you've received your gift box. So in your gift box, you're going to find a tool that we're going to use when we finish our washes, and it's a scrubber brush. So if you go outside those lines, I'm going to give you a special brush to clean it up. So we're going to let this dry. When I come back, whoopee, we get to do the wash. Okay, this is still wet, but I just painted in that reflection, and I used a mixture of the Windsor orange and cobalt blue, just to kind of the same colors I used to paint it. And I think I made it a little bit too hot. I'm just going to put in a little bit more cobalt here. And I'm going to do something kind of risky. I'm going to put a little bit of this masking in here to save a few of these whites. And my paint is still wet. I'm just going to go ahead and put in this masking in these horizontal strokes. If I don't like it, I can change it. Welcome back. We're ready for the big decision. What colors are you going to use? And it is kind of a hard decision. I agonize over it. So we know about the two triads, the Nita Engel and the Old World. So now this is the Nita Engel palette, and it's more of a sunny day. It's a really bright, the colors are more intense. And see, one of the things that this is a successful painting, in my estimation, are these beautiful whites that are left here. And the way we're going to do that is a little trick. We're going to build ladders of color, and we're going to save these whites. Oh, I love it. So now this is the Nita Engel. So it's the purest yellow you have, plus permanent rose and cobalt blue. And it's real heavy on the blue. I decided I wanted to go quite cool on this one. This one is also Nita Engel. And you can see here where I kept the focus of light a little bit in the thirds. So we're getting a lot of yellow and a lot of pink through here, and the cooler colors off to the edge. But again, this is the Nita Engel, very intense colors. Here's another one with the Nita Engel colors. And you can see here the light is kind of coming in at an angle. It's light here and dark here. The light is flowing in from above. So our lightest lights are always at the top here. And when we're doing this, we have to remember to put darks, darks, darks. All of these lily pads have to get seated into the darks. And I love the light bouncing back here. So we've got a major light area here and here. So saving the lights is a very critical part of this whole thing. Now we have another Nita Engel one. Again, with the light coming in at a diagonal. So you can choose to make your light come in at a diagonal, straight from the top, come in from the right. It's something you gotta be thinking about. And this one, very heavy on the blue. See, there's just enough pink in there to echo the color of the flowers. I love that. I love having whatever subject you're flowers are, whatever color your flowers are, it's really nice to have it echoed in the water. Because water reflects. Okay, yeah, but you can tell the difference. This is the Halifax or the Old World one. And again, it's coming in at a diagonal. And the beautiful whites of the paper, you can see some of the gold, some of the, this would normally be more burnt orange. I actually threw a little red in it. You can do that. I even threw in some magenta. You'll see, we're gonna add whatever colors we want. But I was pushing on this to put the magenta in under the yellow water lilies, because purple and yellow are complementary. So if you're doing yellow water lilies, you might want to consider giving a nice purpley accent in your darks. Here's another one with the Old World. And you can see here the burnt orange, and then the white, and the white, and the white, and the white. So I'm going to show you how to build those ladders right now. Very exciting. Use your nice big brush. And the first thing you're going to do is wet only the front. Now I almost always wet the back and the front, but in this case, it's not a good idea. The reason being, all this masking, if you were to wet the back with all that masking, I just don't think it would work to have the moisture going behind this masking. So what I did, you can see I've got 2 clips. I'm not taping it. I don't like that. When you tape it, it buckles so much. When you have clips, if it starts to buckle, I can pull it and tighten the clip. So that's why I do it this way. So you can't tell, but I'm actually thinking right now. I'm thinking, what colors are you going to use, Karlyn? And I think the picture is kind of speaking to me. I really like the pinks. I would like to emphasize the pinky colors. But if you look in here, there's a lot of Quin burnt orange, there's a lot of Quin gold. I could actually go into the Old World with this one. Oh boy, I almost need a drum roll right now. So I think what I'll do, I think most people like the Nita Engel sunny, bright sunny day look. So I think we'll go for that. That means we are going to start with our brightest primary yellow. And I'm going to use some areolin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a stripe here about the width of my brush, just a hair bigger. And then I'm going to leave a white, and I'm going to do another stripe. So just to make it easy, I'm going to go to the middle now with this stripe. And if you can't, just go right over, everything's protected. And then our stripe at the bottom here. And then I'm going to go in between with another stripe of just the yellow. So this is what I mean by building ladders. We've got the yellow, white, yellow, white, yellow, white, yellow, white. And I want you to put quite a bit of color on there. Now the next color I'm going to choose is Quinacridone Rose. And get lots of color, not too much water, lots of color. And then you're going to just add on to this. See, this is just going right onto this same, there's my yellow stripe, there's my yellow stripe. Same here, there's my yellow, so I'm adding it on. So the white is intact, and this stripe is just color. I got another one here, I have 5 stripes. There you go. Now we're going to put cobalt on the edge. And you know, it's so fun. I lay awake at night just thinking about these lessons. I'm never thinking about what can I enter in a show. That never comes into my mind. I just keep thinking, what can I do for the next lesson? And I think this is one of my coolest. I've never done ladders like this before. I've never seen it done. I think it's pretty cool. Now you can see what I'm doing. I'm attaching the blue onto the end of each of those reds. Both sides. I start on the outside and come in. Start on the outside, come in. Start over here and come in. Here and come in. And here and come in. Oh, fun, very fun. Now you need to have a fine mister handy. You can see, I talked about this before, it has a narrow inner, and this is going to give me a very fine mist. And I noticed it's not as full as it should be. So I just filled my mister, and here's another little piece of information that's important. You should never fill your fine mister to the very top. You need that airspace for pumping action. Okay, here we go. So we're gonna start tipping this, and this is what we want. We want those things to run across like that, and if it doesn't, just show them who's boss. Give them a little hit. Okay, I need another little hit right here. Okay, now I wait until this color has gone all the way to the other side of the picture. Now I'm going to do it this way. And again, I'm going to show this picture who's boss. Come on, come on. Let's get rolling here. And I want these colors to go across the middle. This is beautiful. Hey, get out of my white. I'm trying to save these whites. Nice. And as soon as it gets all the way, I flip it again. Okay, now this time, can you see how very blue it is here? It's very warm here, very blue here. So now I'm going to pull some of this yellow into my blue area. Come on, come on. Same here. So look what's happening. I'm still saving whites. I love it. But we have this wonderful mix of color going on. Wow. Now we're going to flip it the other way. And I'll write this up. Okay, now again, can you see how blue it is here? We need to get some of that color down here. So I'm just going to say, come on, come on. And I'm very close when I do this. I just give it a little shot, then I have to wait for it. Give it a little shot, let it go. And we've still saved whites. Major victory, major. Love it. Wow, this is looking pretty good. So now let's give it a little look again. And you can see it looks pretty colorful. But just remember, these colors are always going to be 20% lighter when they dry. Well, I really like what's happening. You can see we've got this full focus of light coming in, moving into the cool. I like it. It's working. So now using a 1-inch flat brush, I now am going to mix up some darks to go under those lily pads. And one of the colors I really like to make a good dark is some Antwerp blue. And now you got to think about what colors would there be in this swamp. And one of the funny things I forgot to mention to you, but you'll notice it now that I'm going to mention it. When you look at pictures of water lilies, the water looks black, absolutely black. But I would never paint the water lily water black. That's just ridiculous. So I'm going to take a huge amount of this Antwerp blue, pure Antwerp blue, and I'm going to mix it with Quinacridone burnt orange. And these two colors together come out into a beautiful dark, dark green. Love this color. And I have a list of color mixing. I have a chart for color mixing down in the tips section. And this is one of my favorites right here. Quinacridone burnt orange, Antwerp blue. And now we're going to take this color and we are going to put it underneath these. Now remember, all of my reflections are not masked. Those are not protected. So I don't want to really lose that. But I do want to add darks under every one of these guys. And remember, don't forget, you have to put the dark in this little center hole here too. So we need it here, but we also need it here. And look at what else we need. We need it under, behind that guy. Oh, remember, this is where I put those in with a little masking. So I'm going to have some hard edges to deal with, but I think I'm going to be glad I did it. Okay, so now every one of our lily pads has a dark under it, and I don't know if you can tell the difference just looking, but see, it now feels like those lily pads are in the water. In this color, Antwerp moves in water. See how it's moving? So now the big deal is we need to connect this. It's just spotty. If you look at this, we've just got the darks now. They're just sitting underneath each one of these lily pads. A little bit here. I don't want to lose my reflection entirely. So what we need to do now is we need to think about connecting this with some fun shapes. And it's a little scary, but I'm going to do it. So I am going to take my 1-inch flat brush. It's loaded with this beautiful dark color. And I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to go swing through these, connect to this. I'm going to go off the page. Then I'm going to come through here and emphasize this white flower. Oh yeah. We're just going to pop that beautiful flower out. Well, it's a miracle, isn't it, when you think about it, that dark just happened to go behind there. And we need a little more here. Then I'm going to come across, connect to this. Maybe I'll have another little coming out here and wiggling around a little here and maybe going off. So now you can see that's probably the bravest thing I've done for a while, is to come in with those darks. But to me, this is tying it together. Without these dark shapes kind of weaving their way through, I don't think it would be as good. We need a little dark in here. So now I'm going to make sure these colors are, I can get rid of my clips. I just want to be sure these colors are going to fall down a little bit, dip a little bit, turn a little bit. So we're just going to give them a little chance to move. I might even take my sprayer and move them a little bit. Yeah, very nice. And same, this direction, I probably shouldn't have taken that clip off so soon, but just to give it, you'll notice we don't have, here's a kind of a hard edge, and that's okay. But I'm going to keep most of the edges pretty soft right now. And I like this irregular soft edge we're getting. See how much softer it is? Sometimes I have to put my finger in there to make sure these colors are moving. Nice. Nice. Oh, it's looking so much better. Now, whenever you're doing, I know this is a floral painting, but it's also a landscape. We are talking about water, and it's always got to move in a horizontal way. So just by tipping it like this, with that little bit of spray, we can get some of those horizontal movements that we want. I like it. Now another thing I actually like these purple colors that are popping in here. And I think I'm going to emphasize that purple a little bit. And it can be whatever color you want. Sometimes I almost always put some kind of a pure color under here. Now I could actually put some red. Ooh, I could put some pure red. Now there's an idea. And when you see a lot of this color building up, sometimes I'll just take it away just because I like it to look clean. Another thing I can do if I want to is I can lift out some of these lines, almost like you would if you were painting up boats in water. I can pick up some of these lines. It's called the thirsty brush. I could pick this up and pull it through. I could lift away some of the color that went onto my unmasked reflection. Oh, I like the way that got. It didn't get bothered. like the dark coming into this right here. Now I do have a lot of pink in the background, so I'm not sure I need to do too much. I think maybe I'll just go with my first feeling about doing some purple under there, because there's so much red in the water already. So I'm just going to take this color. It's permanent magenta. It's a beautiful color, and see, it's got a lot of red in it. So I'm just going to put some of this permanent magenta under each of the lily pads, not the flowers. Notice I didn't put any darks under the flowers or the buds. I'm only doing it on the lily pads. And this is my accent color, permanent magenta. Ooh, I like it already. That was a good idea. So I'm putting it under every single lily pad. So now we've got that nice little punch. Oh, love it. And we're just about done. We're gonna let this move, settle in and move a little bit. Now I've got another trick up my sleeve. You're not gonna believe this one. The next thing I want to do is I want to create some lovely textures in the water. And I'm thinking about the horizontal movement. Horizontal. It's got to be horizontal because that's what happens in a landscape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this saran wrap. It's the premium heavy duty, not the cling. I don't like the cling. And I'm going to put, first of all, a little bit of salt. Now it's early for salt, but I have to have the paper wet to get this effect. So I'm just going to take a chance and I'm going to put a little bit of salt. And you know where I'm going to put it? Only in my whites. Which, by the way, aren't they gorgeous? The whites make the painting. So I'm only putting salt in my whites or lights. Done. Now I'm going to take this incredible premium, and I'm going to gather it up so it becomes like pleats. And I'm going to just set it down, gather it up like pleats. I can do half the painting at once. And then starting in the middle, I'm going to pull it out, and it's going to create these lovely patterns in the water. It's awesome. So from here to here, look at that. Oh, that's so fun. Can you see the patterns? Yeah. Okay, we're going to do one more, all the way. Again, I gather it up. Usually I have a friend that'll help me, but this, you can do it yourself. And then I just start with about 3 of these. Relax, set it down, and then take and kind of accordion pleat the last 3. Drop it down, start in the middle, and go to the edge. And you can control these patterns. You can lift it up and do it again if you don't like the pattern. The paper is bumpy, so sometimes you just have to like those bumpy lines that happen. But if you lift the paper and always start in the middle. So if you lift the paper, you can pull it back and you can get into some of those edges. There you go. So you can see where the salt is there, it's not going to touch. And I expect that. And I don't care because the salt's going to give me a lovely texture. But look at what's happening here with these edges. Isn't that fun? So now we just let this cook. When we come back, I'll pull it out of the oven and you can see what happened. Well, this really is like Christmas morning. I can't wait to pull this off. You can see the textures. Ooh, ooh, beautiful feeling of light. I'll have to say, I'm pretty excited about this. And you can see that the plastic wrap really created some beautiful patterns of movement in the water. And the original underpainting really gave us that beautiful focus of light under there, moving into the cooler edges. And remember when we were watching that yellow kind of trail down? We never painted any yellow here. That was trailed into that area. Very nice. Here too, that yellow, we just streaked it and allowed it to move to the edge of the paper. So it was really fun painting this. It felt like water. And look how lovely that reflection is. I'm going to move in close so you can see it really close up. But look at that reflection. See, we never masked that. And I tried to keep the real strong darks out of there. So it really does feel like a reflection. I did the same thing here. None of these reflections, we didn't put any darks under them. We just allowed the darks to flow near them. And look at here. I pulled the dark alongside because I wanted to get dark behind this white flower. And this was never touched with darks, and we get to see those lovely reflections coming through. Ha! Now, everything's dry. Now it's time to take off the masking. And the masking is dirty from all the paint on it. So now we're going to be back to the lights. It's going to look a lot brighter and lighter. And if you get your masking on thick enough, you can usually just grab it like this and peel it off like a bad sunburn. But I didn't get mine on. Remember I said my masking was kind of thin. Huh. But usually it's real impressive. I just grab this and peel it off. It's kind of fun to do. Let's take a look at our little guy over here. He's the one I'm excited about. Now there is a maskoid remover, and I don't like it. I prefer to use my finger and just peel it off. Yeah. And now you're going to see that we have all of these white water droplets. So I'm going to be doing water droplets, and I'm going to be doing a little fixing up here and there where maybe we had edges that we goofed on. You can already see there's a goof over here, a little dot, another dot here we didn't expect. And there's always a few edges, like the outside of this guy has a white edge. So in your box, your little gift box, there's going to be a tool that you can use to clean up these edges. I'm going to show you that too. So I'm going to take a minute off camera and take all this masking off, and I'll be right back. Okay, we got all the masking off. And be sure when you're doing taking the masking off, that you don't just let that fall on the floor, and especially if you have rugs, ooh, it's gooey gummy and it sticks in rugs really good. You'll never get it out. So I'm always careful. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our little magic brush and we're going to soften some of the edges where there's little particles of white. So I'm just going to move in close so you can see what I'm doing. So for example, here's one right here. Now when you have a beautiful graded wash, which is what this background is, you don't want to disturb it. You don't want to paint into it with hard edges. Just love what you've got because it's beautiful. And a lot of people think, oh, I need to go darker. I'm going to paint some darks under there. And they ruin their picture. You got to believe me. They ruin their picture. You have to just love what you have and do this little bit of fixing up. So for example, I'm gonna take my little scrubber brush and see that white edge? It looks like snow. We're just gonna take a little bit of this color here, and look at that. Just wet it and push it in there. That's how easily we're gonna do away with it. There's a few little white spots around where I dripped masking. Here's another little white edge. I'm just gonna push the color into that white. And I very seldom push this into the white. I just touch that edge with my damp brush, and it immediately, it's gone, just gone. Let's see if we can find a few more. There's another one. Now I wet my brush, I just wipe it so it's slightly damp. I take the color from inside and push it out. I don't push in from the graded wash. So I just push this out. Just add that little bit of color that we need. Of course, I'm going to save all the whites that I purposely saved in there. But some of these little whites that were not intentional, I just didn't do a good job with my masking. Look at this, just a matter of a few minutes. Now, I'm not going to change those whites. I built those in. It's these other little whites that I'm looking for. Now this one here, I do have a major goof in the water, in the graded wash. So I might have to make the sign of the cross before I start this one. I don't like messing around with that graded wash. So I'm just very carefully going to get that graded wash to just kind of soften. Well, it's looking pretty good. Here's another one. Ah, hey, it got lucky. Those are fine. And then I've got another one over here that kind of looks like it could have been a snowstorm the night before. We're going to have to take that graded wash and just slowly, slowly soften it. A few edges here and there. So I think that's fun. I love doing that. Now even my little Froggy, I'm going to move in close and do a little finishing on him. See the little Froggy? You can see that there are some little white edges here. Just take this little brush, clean it up. Love that. I think my little Froggy turned out really cute. He definitely has a personality, and I love the white and the light yellow going into the greens. And remember, my plastic pushed up and it gave me a little, he looks wet. He looks like he just came out of the water. So now I'm going to take and mix a very dark using my Quinacridone burnt orange and a little French ultramarine. You hear me use this a lot. I don't have black on my palette, so I have to mix it every time. And here is the Froggy. So one of the things I want to do is I want to work on that eye. And I want to do it on dry paper. So I'm just down to my little #1 brush here. And I'm going to make that eye a little darker and a little bigger. And there's kind of a little extra circle going around here. A little darker here. Another little circle. Some little dots. And he's got a little dark circle under his eye. So you can add a few little darks if you want to. This eye's got little polka dots. I might make some of this a little darker. A little bit more definition in his fingers. And then I often like to just lose some of these edges. So some of these edges, I'm just going to soften them out a bit. And the under part of his eye can be a little bit grayer, because the light's just touching the upper part of his eye. So that's going to do it. Now comes the real fun. I'm going to show you how to do these water droplets. So first of all, because we're nice and close, I'm going to push back these little whites that aren't supposed to be here. Now I'm ready to deal with the water droplets. First thing I do is wet them. And you can do a bunch of them at once. So we'll just deal with all of these right here. We're going to wet them. One more. And these are going to be reflecting what's around them. So they're definitely going to be reflecting some of these greens. So I'm just going to take a little bit of my Windsor yellow, a little bit of Antwerp blue, and just make kind of a light green. Now remember, the light is coming this way, and the shadow, the cast shadow, is going to be in this elliptical shape here. So I'm just going to take and put a little bit of that greeny color here. So we'll touch a little bit on every one. We'll paint them all at once. Now I want to go a little darker. So now I'm going to take some gold, Quin Gold, and Antwerp. And that's going to give me a little darker, olivey colored green. So we'll get that going here. And they never really look like water droplets until we get to the good part. And that is the little cast shadow. It's amazing. That cast shadow does it. I'm going to go just a hair darker. Just a little bit here. And I might even take a little bit of my darkest green, that's the Quinacridone burnt orange, a little bit of Antwerp blue, a lot of Antwerp blue, more Antwerp than orange. And I'm just going to go just a hair darker here. A little bit darker. Just touch them all. Now we have to dry those. Now this is what really makes the water droplets look like water droplets. We're going to take a black. In other words, Quinacridone burnt orange, French ultramarine blue. We're going to make it into a very, very dark blue, black actually. And I've got just a little #1 brush. And what we're going to do is we're going to take and paint that little cast shadow. This is dry now, I dried it. So there's this elliptical shadow here. Just coming in. And every one of these is going to have a cast shadow. Thicker there, a little thinner there. Thicker over here. A little thinner as it comes around. And it's really cute. Just and you're painting on a surface that's kind of mottled and full of debris. Don't worry if it's not perfect. And the thing is, these are actually going like this. There's a wobble to it. So just do the best you can. It's gonna work. You can see already they're starting to look like real water droplets. Love it. Look at that. Look at that. Now, here's the real trick. After you've completed the cast shadows, you have to have a razor blade. And you'll notice how I put just a little dark on that side. I've actually got some white of the paper left, but I kept pushing a little bit of dark in there. And that's so I could do this. I'm just going to stick this in here and pull it down and make what's called a hanging chad. Shouldn't be talking about that in this election year. But you can see if you don't like what you did, you can push it back in again. It's actually a little hanging chad there. You just pull it back. So each one of these is going to get a little hanging chad. It's amazing. It takes a lot of force. I'm pushing it into the paper and pulling it back. It's a pretty aggressive move. It's a pretty aggressive move. But that's the final thing that makes it look so nice. So there's our little water droplets. That was fun. And the further back you get, the better they look. Man, these are actually a little messy. Just depends on how critical detail is for you. Okay, so now we're going to back up again and take a look at maybe the possibility of casting some shadows. I always love to do this. Now, whenever you have a big plant like this next to this, you could start casting some shadows here. And I think I'll do it. So I'm just going to take a relatively small brush. This is a number 8. And I'm just going to take some cobalt blue. And I could gray it down a bit. I'll put just a little hint of my Windsor orange in it. And so you can see it's a nice cool gray. And then I'm just going to come in here and cast some of these shadows. So this is like a cast shadow. That would be, and I'm just making it up. If you had a picture that had perfect cast shadows, you could use that. You don't have to worry about the shadows in the water. Just do a few shadows right on your lily pad. This would cast a shadow. And that's nice too, because it's starting to give this lily pad, see, it pops it out a bit. We like that. And then every now and then, one lily pad will be on top of another. So I'll just come in and put a little cast shadow right on the lily pad here, from the lily pad above it. And it could be wider and narrower, kind of like the shadow we just cast. Now, one of the things I'm really pleased with here are the dark to lights that we got here in our water lilies. They're very nice. The whole idea that the sun here, we've got the white of the paper, and then the mid-tone and the dark. Now, if you were really upset and wanted to go just a little bit darker on your lily pads, you can do that. But whatever you do, please don't mess around with this graded wash. So let's say I want to go darker on my lily pad. I could simply grab a little Antwerp blue and I could pop it in. This is a transparent color. I could come in here and make it just a little bit darker. This is my focal area after all. And it could show up this little nose on that edge. And we've got another water droplet here. And right about in here, I would wet my brush, shake it out, and get rid of that extra moisture, and just back in like this, and just let that kind of melt out into the rest here. And see, that's quite lovely. So we could do a little bit of this dark light patterning. That little froggy could be casting a shadow onto this lily pad. So I'm going to go back to this gray mixture and just put him casting a little shadow here. I don't know what it would look like. I haven't painted too many frogs, but I think that's good, just to get that pushed back a little bit. And as we move around, this lily pad would be casting a shadow here, coming down onto this lily pad. And this guy here would be casting a shadow in the water. Now, the only thing I allow in the water, I take possession of the paintings, but I really don't want you messing around with this graded wash. So one of the things we can do is we could go into our green with the same colors. This has got a lot of Quin Gold and Antwerp. And if you feel you should have gotten a little darker, we could come in and do a little bit of correction in the water. But the big thing is this. See how those hard edges, they absolutely look foreign. So anything you do, you have to come back and lose those edges so it looks like water. We're painting water. It's got to be wet. So you can see I did accomplish getting that now a little bit darker, and it still looks wet. I like that. Even here, if I wanted this to be just a little bit darker, but I'm going to wet my brush, shake it out, take the extra moisture off, and soften those edges. Now I've got one thing here. This is why I did not want you to mask your reflections. You can see I've got a big job here. So I'm back to my brush. This is called the scrubber. And what I have to do, and it's very hard to do when this paper does not want to lift, I have to really work hard to get this softened. So I'm actually destroying the paper right now. You can see little particles of the paper coming up. And so what I'm doing is I'm saving a few of these whites, but for the most part, I'm literally going to get rid of this really hard edge. And I'm just going to leave a little hint of the light here. I really want this all melted into that. So I keep dampening my brush, taking off the extra moisture, and work right here on that transition area. Get that soft. Work this out. So if you happen to have any of these areas, you may have decided to mask your shadows and kind of wish you hadn't. So there's salvation. You can come in and soften, soften, soften. And you can see those little particles floating around. I'm chewing up the paper right now. I wouldn't want to paint in this area now. So I'm just going to have to go with what I see right here. Okay, it looks pretty good. I've got a lot of little dings to fix up. So I'll eventually show you this when it's all finished. I may decide to even add some more color. This looks like it lost a little of the color. So I might just come in with some brighter orange. I always like to fix up the sex organs a little bit. So we'll give that just a little bit more color. But isn't that lovely, the glow that we built in there originally from that yellow underpainting? I like that. So we'll just go around and add in a few little dings of color here and there. Pop it up. And I'm sure you'll think of a few areas on your own that might need a little more life breathed into them. But this is all starting to look pretty good. Well, as you can see, ta-da, we have our finished painting. And I did come in and finish the rest of the little water droplets. And I'm just looking overall now. I'm checking, did I clean up all my edges with my little scrubby? And I'm very happy with the feeling of the light coming through. You can still feel the warm going into the reds, going into the cools. If you look along the edges, see, look at it, it's dominant cool. If you look in the middle, it's dominant warm. That is the focus of light that I was hoping to create. Very happy with that. And we will be doing this over again in landscapes, in florals. I think it's a way to work. It's a way to definitely build that beautiful glow and vibrancy into your painting. Now, there's only a few little things that need to be touched up. I'm going to move in closer here. One of the things I noticed that I wasn't happy with was this white flower. Now, I like that, you know, when you look at a flower this white, very often you don't actually see a line defining one petal to the next. This all kind of blurs into just a light. So what I'm going to do is just take my scrubber brush, and I'm going to, when you wet graphite, you cannot erase it. So what I'm going to do is just take the scrubber brush and actually eliminate this line. That's what's so cool about this little brush. You have to have a brush like this. So when I see lines that aren't working for me, and I don't really want to define it, I like that just all blended together. I'm just going to come in here, it's not perfect, but I'm going to lift away some of these lines that are unnecessary. Now remember, when you're doing this, you're destroying the paper. So don't do this and then decide to go back and paint. You'll be sorry. This is definitely a last resort. So I actually use this brush for many little fussy things. I like to think I'm a real loose painter, but when all is said and done, I spend a lot of time on finishing, and I like every detail to be taken care of. For example, if I wanted to, I could actually get rid of these pencil lines up here by coming in with this little brush and just softening them with the brush and then lifting them. I probably won't do that. I did find another error. Without realizing it, I didn't mask this tip. You can see that should be breaking out into the water. And so I just went along the edge of the lily pad here and I missed that tip. Well, this is fantastic. It's an opportunity. So this is a piece of acetate, and what I'm going to do is show you how we can cut this out and fix that tip. So give yourself a little room here, and this is a pen. A Sharpie would work, any kind of a pen. And so what I'm doing is I'm drawing exactly what the shape I want. Now I'm going to cut it out. Love this stuff. You'd be surprised how often you have to do these little fixer-uppers. If this was oil paint or acrylic, you could just paint right over it, but it's watercolor. So we do have this particular thing. Now you can see I have it lined up where I want it. And this is a part of a Mr. Clean Magic eraser. And what I do is I just cut off a little piece as I need it, because they get used up so quickly. So I'm going to place this exactly where I want it. I'm going to dip my Mr. Clean into the water, and I squeezed it really hard twice. Now I'm wiping it on my pants. Now the last thing I'm going to do, you don't want it too wet. I'm going to come in and going from the plastic into the flower, I'm going to come in and lift out that white. Isn't that cool? Look at that. Clean as a whistle. Now again, this is destroying the paper. I'm not going to come in and paint on that because all the sizing, everything's gone. But you can see, now I've got, I like that. It's a small thing, but I like things that interlock and break out. And there you have the finished painting. Well, I hope you enjoyed my encore lesson of water lilies, and good luck.